honored to be surrounded by so many people with all this great knowledge about urological diseases, prevention and treatment. We know so much, and we can do so much in relation to urological diseases. But none of our efforts leads to anything if you don't manage to involve the patient and relatives. We all meet the patient who doesn't take his medication, or who doesn't drink the recommended amount of water. We meet the woman who do not empty her bladder as many times as she was told. Our knowledge first becomes valuable when it makes sense to the patient, when the patient participates, when the patient is compliant. The project developing decision aids in complex neurorehabilitation was all about this: inviting, involving, making the patient participate. When we invite the patients in on decisions like how they will empty their bladder, we increase the chance of compliance. But I think that the last 20 years' experience with attempts of involving patients shows us that it is not easy. What we learned from our project is that it is possible. Before I get started, I'll talk a bit about what it's all about: decisions and decision aids. Decision aids can look very different. They can be on an app or on paper. The important thing is that the aids systemize and structure the road to the good decision. That the aid ensures that the patient comes around all corners during the decision process. Our aids are in paper. We introduce them to the patient short after admission to our clinic, to make sure that the patient is part of the decision process from the beginning. The professionals at the clinic have always believed that we were quite good at involving the patient. And with the new strategy, we were actually excellent, we thought. So, when the Danish National Board of Health provided a pool of funds, it was natural to apply, because meant we were facing a quite easy project. We got a bit wiser. We were fortunate enough to get fundings to do the project. The tasks were very well described. We should identify 1 or 2 important decisions during rehabilitation after spinal cord injury. We should develop decision aids which facilitated patient-relative involvement. We should implement the aids in clinical practice, and we should evaluate the process and the results. I'll come back to the 4 steps later. First, a bit about the theories. The theories used in this project are all well known. But even though we have known these theories for years, they are really difficult to implement in daily practice. Patient involvement, participation, shared decision-making, and decision aids go hand in hand. Shared decision-making is defined as an approach in which professionals and patients communicate using the best available evidence when faced with a decision. To reach that point, where the patient can make an informed choice based on shared decision-making, it is necessary to go through several steps. For some decisions, this can be accomplished with only one conversation with the patient and relatives. For other decisions, this is a process over time, which also involves the whole interdisciplinary team. Most decisions during rehabilitation after spinal cord injury demand several discussions, time for reflection, and an interprofessional approach. Decision aids, the red line on the bottom, can support the shared decision-making process and ensure the patient and relatives are involved. The decision aid can be used for part of the process or the whole process. Decision aids can give patients impartial information about options for treatment. It can also help the patient with an overview of the options. In our aids, it's possible to compare the options against each other. It presents information, pros and cons, in a clear and simple way. But it's always important to remember that decision aids must be evidence-based. That's our responsibility to make sure that they are that. They should be based on the patient's need for information. And that is hard work to find out what the patient wants information about. Sometimes we think something, but when we ask the patient, they need something we don't think of. The aid should invite for reflection. And in the end, all of this should give the patient the opportunity to make a good decision. It's very important to say that a decision aid can never stand alone. It should always be a part of the dialogue. It is very relevant to use decision aids in relation to bladder management. Patients today have lots of options available for safe management of the bladder following spinal cord injury. However, there is rarely one perfect solution that will meet each person's needs. A comprehensive assessment of the options available is necessary to find the management approach that will best fit his or her unique anatomy, neurophysiology, functional ability, and social life. The decision often requires choosing the best option from among several imperfect solutions. To make the process successful requires the expertise of many persons, the most important, the patient with SCI. Because compliance with any bladder management approach is the key to its success, it is essential for the patient to be comfortable with the pros and cons of various methods of bladder management in a fair and unbiased way. Patient education and dialogue should include a balanced discussion of the effect each method will have on health, lifestyle, sexuality, and the availability of expert follow-up. The decision of which methods to choose can be made after all these various factors have been weighted. That is what the decision aid can facilitate when successfully developed and implemented. At this slide, you see a simple but very important part of the aid. When the illustration is used to facilitate the dialogue, it's easier to make the patient and relative reflect on subject or issues which need to be taken into account. The aid also makes it legal to talk about very personal issues like sexuality. Implementation of decision aids does not come by itself. At our clinic, it was a cultural change. A new way to be, for example, nurse, occupational therapist, or doctor. A nurse explained it like this. Before the project, I talked to the patient. Now I speak with the patient. Patients do not require the involvement themselves. So the frames must be in place, and the staff must have the necessary knowledge and skills. We therefore worked at 3 areas during the project. We worked on developing the 2 aids, the knowledge and skills of the staff, and the patient's pathway. I'll now introduce you a little bit more to the aids. I would have loved to show you something total high-tech, brightly colored, but this is what it is, a paper bag. But it is a meaningful and useful paper bag. The aid for bladder management is found in a male and a female version. The structure and overall content is the same, but of course there are some features that are customized the gender. In the beginning, you'll find information about the neurologic bladder, and in general, the aids are loaded with information. Yesterday we heard the patients should not have too much information, but our patient asks for it. One of the reasons for this is that the patient used the aids when they talk to the relatives. Another reason is that the patient and relatives actually have quite some time during this long rehabilitation process. That's not always possible in a fast-track pathway. The patient will find information about the different methods, pros, cons, and it is possible to compare the methods by laying the option grids side by side. After each method has been presented, the patient will find a decision guide where they can assess if they have had enough information, what information they may still need, and to what extent they find the method appealing. It is primarily the nurse and doctor who use the bladder aid for facilitating the dialogue with the patient. The aid is used continuously on multiple talks. The main purpose of the whole project was to increase patient and relatives' experience of involvement and participation in decision-making. But did we do that? To investigate, we asked patients and professionals at the start of the project and in the end of the project. I'll not go through all the numbers on this slide, but in general, we wanted it to be more yellow, because that shows that patients feel increased involvement. And we can see that all questions have gone more yellow. In December 2016, 18 did very much agree in the fact that health professions showed interest in how the relatives wanted to be included in the treatment. That number had increased to 63 in 2018. In December 2016, 18% felt that there was presence and attention in the conversations with health professionals. This has increased to 78% in 2018. We're quite happy about these results, because they show that the overall effect of the project and our new way of involving patients has a positive effect. It's also quite fun to see the development in the way decision process is being verbalized. When we started the project, the patient said, "What decision? Maybe it's too early for us to handle being involved." The professional said, "Oh, it's unsystematic when we do decision. There's a lack of overview. I don't know how far we are in the process. Is it really a good idea to involve patients in decisions?" We, the healthcare professionals, have the professional knowledge. And it was difficult for new employees, especially nurses, to work with patient involvement. After the implementation, the attitude has changed. Patient says, "I took the decision myself, but I got help all the way. I have received information that I can use later in my life. It is not enough to get the leaflet, the aid, handed out. It must be reviewed with the staff, but then it's a good tool." The professionals now mean that we work more systematic. We go through it all with the patient. It's professional. Patient and relatives are more active and involved, and the aid is a help for new employees. So, what was my intention with this presentation? I hope I have inspired you to work with structured involvement, work with decision aids. I think there is a great unused potential just in front of us, the patients and relatives. Together with them, we can make our knowledge valuable. By helping the patient to make the right decision from the beginning, the chance of compliance is increased.